Speaker is recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I thank the gentleman for yielding, and more importantly, I thank him for his tremendous leadership. His understanding of infrastructure in our country, the way to build it in a green way, to honor our commitment to our children, is something that is a blessing to the Congress. For decades, he has served on the Transportation Infrastructure Committee, and he has done so in a way that has taken us into the future. But we haven't had a bill in a while, and so I thank him for his bill that he had earlier that is not all reflected here, but nonetheless, hopefully, we'll see some provisions in the Build Back Better Act. I rise in support of the bipartisan infrastructure bill, the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, which is about jobs, 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 jobs. Support for this legislation is bipartisan, bicameral, and respectful of the needs of workers and communities across the country. Following the vision of President Biden, the bipartisan infrastructure bill addresses a great need in America, which has been neglected for decades, as I mentioned. Our roads, bridges, and water systems are crumbling. Some water systems are over 100 years old, Mr. Speaker, made of brick and wood. Our grid system is vulnerable to catastrophic outages. We must not only build the infrastructure for the 21st century economy, we must rebuild the middle class, creating good-paying American jobs and turbocharging American competitiveness and growth. These are connected. Again, thanks again to President Biden. He said, I'm happy to work in a bipartisan way in order to have an infrastructure bill where we come to agreement. But I will not confine my vision to that piece, that legislative piece. We must build back better. And I think it's very important to note for people across the country who have seen infrastructure in the past come in and divide their communities, perpetuate injustices, environmental injustice in their communities, that it is necessary for us to build back better in a way that empowers women. When I say build the middle class, it's about jobs, but it's about jobs in a new way, more inclusive for women, for people of color, for younger people to be engaged and trained with workforce training to participate in the new economy with jobs and justice. In the past, our infrastructure bills have reinforced that environmental injustice and divided communities. The Build Back Better will undo that. With the passage of this bill, accompanied by the Build Back Better legislation, with its equity piece, all of that much of that injustice, as much as possible, will be reversed. It's about building up. It's not about trickle down. Oh, this is what we're going to do, and a lot of people will benefit, and maybe you'll get some of it. No, it's about meeting the needs of people, both for water needs, or transportation needs, or infrastructure needs in many ways, but also that starts and then builds up. Along with the Build Back Better Act, this prioritizes some aspects of justice and opportunity, helping ensure that, let me be clear. While the investments in the bipartisan infrastructure bill are strong, historic down payment for Build Back Better, we are not confining our vision, as the President said he's not confining his, for rebuilding infrastructure to this.
Now it's been a total of 6 months since the implementation of the historic American Rescue Plan took place. Treasury Department recently released its progress report, highlighting how the bill met the needs of an economy and the country in the middle of a crisis. According to the Treasury Department, since President Biden signed the American Rescue Plan, over 3 million jobs have been added to the economy, and job creation has averaged more than 765,000 over the last 3 months. But the big question is, will President Biden send out the fourth stimulus check? Be sure to stay until the end of this video to find out. So of the $1 trillion allocated to the bill, over $700 billion has already been distributed back to American families. And this includes stimulus payments, child tax credit checks, and assisting businesses that were impacted by the downturn of the crisis. The report was largely an ode to the positive impacts of the stimulus bill, and also made clear an area of the economy that is still in need of reform, and that's childcare. A second tranche of over $100 billion in state and local recovery funds will be delivered next year. This money is largely intended to fund and create more equitable economic recovery. And part of this equity is increasing access to childcare, so that parents, and particularly women, can get back to the workforce. A petition started by a Colorado restaurant owner is calling on Congress to support families with a $2,000 payment for adults and a $1,000 payment for kids immediately. and continuing regular checks for the duration of the crisis, has also reached 3 million signatures in total. Everybody, what are your thoughts on President Biden? Can he send us the fourth stimulus check before the end of the year? Tell me what you think in the comments below. Now, after federal unemployment benefits came to an end during the crisis, nearly 8 million people saw their income plummet. And so now, this stimulus petition calling for $2,000 checks every single month says that continuous federal stimulus payments would support those laid off workers and furloughed workers, as well as the self-employed. As of September 25th, the petition has 2.8 million signatures, an increase of over 600,000 since early June. And while in the spring, various Democratic lawmakers were advocating for more stimulus checks, and support has since waned. In addition to the petition calling for monthly stimulus checks, the Senior Citizens League has launched a petition calling on Congress to send a fourth direct payment to Social Security beneficiaries. And let's get into most important stimulus check information first. The Senior Citizens League is an organization that advocates for the rights for seniors and also argues that the federal government should send a $1,400 stimulus check to this group because they have seen their disposable incomes plummet during the crisis. It also argues that the COLA increases are not sufficient, saying in 2021, Social Security benefits increased by just 1.3%, raising the average benefit by only $20 a month. But about 86% of Social Security recipients that were surveyed say their expenses increased by much more than that amount. As negotiations over infrastructure, the reconciliation bill, and the debt ceiling suck up the air in Capitol Hill, a fourth round of stimulus payments could be included into the legislative package. And some Americans might be eligible for health insurance rebates. That's all thanks to a provision in the Affordable Care Act, which ensures medical loss ratio requirements. Yahoo reports that under the rule, insurance companies have to spend about 80% of their premiums on claims and other activities of value to policyholders. The remaining 20% goes to overhead costs, and no more than 20% of an insurance company costs can go toward overhead. And everybody, here's what Nancy Pelosi is saying about the fourth stimulus check. Let's get into the most important stimulus check news first, and here it is. And progressives told Nancy Pelosi that they may still take the infrastructure bill on Thursday, without a significant movement on the package. And progressives have stopped insisting on the $3.5 trillion in spending, and they're less focused on a top-line number than what programs make into the plan. Moderates, meanwhile, have been very clear that they're in favor of a reconciliation bill, just one with a smaller price tag. But everybody, if the infrastructure bill has a smaller price tag, that means we'll get a smaller stimulus check. And I believe that's unacceptable. President Biden, Nancy Pelosi, and Chuck Schumer have all agreed to send out more stimulus payments, so it has to be done. And if you guys agree, then let's get this video to 1,000 likes.